In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. So the church is still in the spirit of celebrating Nativity, and so the church tunes are still in the joyful tune, and we'll continue this until this coming Tuesday, which is the Feast of Circumcision. And because we're still in the season of Nativity, the gospel readings complement each other. On the Feast of Nativity, we read the gospel of how the wise men came and stopped in Jerusalem, and Herod met them, and then they eventually made their way to Jerusalem, to Bethlehem, to find the child, offer the gifts, and leave. And then the gospel of today kind of continues in that story. But before we get to the gospel reading, what I want to talk about is the challenge of raising kids, because raising children, all right, is a guarantee that something is going to go wrong, right? And whenever something goes wrong, as parents, we often demand an explanation. Right? Go to our kids and be like, why did that happen? What were you thinking? And do we often get an explanation? Not really, all right? I remember being asked when I was young, why did you do that? Lost. I don't know. I just did. Really wasn't thinking. I just did it. Therefore, I can't give you an answer as to why I did it, because there was no thought process as to why I did it, right? So this is often the situation. And for parents, this can be very frustrating, because as parents, you want an explanation as to why it happened. And is it really so much for a parent to expect that a child would be able to give the answer that adults should provide in their child? Is it too much to really expect that a parent should expect their child to give an adult-like answer as to why they did something foolish when they are still a child? Yes, it's totally unrealistic, right? It's totally unrealistic for us to expect our children to give an adult answer. And what we want is an adult answer, right? Because that satisfies us. But it doesn't appreciate where they are. And so we're often left in, with few options. Either we can begin to control the situation so tightly that it begins to suffocate the relationship and suffocate the expression of love that should happen between child and parent and child, right? If we try and control too much, it no longer becomes a relationship of love, it becomes a relationship of control. And that's not the relationship that we want. And when it is too much control, you find that the kid grows up to resent the parent. And so in this relationship, there is one of guidance. There is one of, I'm going to have to let you make the mistakes, but I'm going to be here to guide you and redirect you. This is what we ultimately need growing up. And as parents, we want to expect kind of the end result. We want a refined individual when they're this big. But it's an unrealistic expectation, right? And what we need to do is to appreciate kind of the condition and the ability of our children and be there to guide them. And as children, what we also need to do is to remember that I'm one in need of guidance. So it's an important balance that we have to show with our children, right? And as parents, we have to know that it's our responsibility to guide, not to suffocate with control. And it's with this in mind that I want us to begin to look at the narrative of today, at the gospel of today, because when we get to the gospel of today, we get to a story in history that is sometimes very difficult to palate. And it's the story in history in which Christ came, and Christ, being all-knowing, knew that in his coming, there would be a horrible event that would be the shadow of his coming, right? And what we're talking about is as I was saying earlier, the Gospel of Nativity spoke about how the wise men came through, stopped with Herod, and Herod said, "Go find the child and come back and bring word to me so that I may worship him." Right? But Herod wasn't planning to worship. And the wise men were warned after they visited the Holy Child to depart another way because Herod wanted to do harm. Well, the Gospel continues in Matthew chapter 2, and the wise men are warned to go another way. Herod picks up that he's been duped, all right? And Herod seeks to protect his kingdom. And Herod was known historically as a very, very paranoid and very, very brutal leader, right? To the point where he had his wife and 2 sons murdered in order to protect his throne. This was the type of ruler that Herod was. And so for him to get a sense that his throne, as being ruler over the Jews in Jerusalem, was being threatened, for him to respond in a way that he did is not so surprising, because it was in line with who his character was and what we know historically of him. So let's look at the gospel, one of the verses of the gospel, where it says, "Then Herod, when he saw that he was deceived by the wise men, was exceedingly angry, and he sent forth and put to death all the male children who were in Bethlehem and in all its districts from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had determined from the wise men." When we read this story, we tend to ask, why did Christ come knowing that the children would die because of his coming? This is one of the questions that we tend to wrestle with. Okay, he's all-knowing. He came and he knew that the children were going to die. Right? And what I want to do is challenge us to kind of flip the question on its head. Right? Because the question shouldn't be, why did he come? The question shouldn't be, why did he come knowing this? But rather to see, it's because of this that he came. Right? It's because of this that he came. And let me explain that. When I say it's because of this that he came, it's because of this potential in man that we see coming in Herod that he came. Because this was not the design of man. This was not the design of humanity. The design of humanity was made in his image and his likeness, in a beautiful relationship with him in the garden. But since the garden, man has continued to decline in his moral integrity over the years. And it happened quite quickly. And what we see embodied in Herod is the ability of mankind. This was the ability of mankind to forget their image so much to the point that they could not only harm their family, but harm many children under their care. This was what humanity was capable of. And so the Lord was coming because of this. Because this is what we have come to as a human race. And while he was coming, this is how Herod wanted to receive him. It kind of resonates with what we read in the Gospel of John, which is the gospel that we read in the prime hour of the Igbe. If we go to the next slide. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. This, John captured what was happening. Jesus came to his own because of what was happening, and his own didn't receive him. In fact, his own wanted to kill him. This is what happened, right? This is why, all right, the Lord came. This is because of what was happening to humanity. I want to read a quote from St. Cyril of Jerusalem, and he's one of the 4th century fathers, and he wrote several lectures teaching newly individuals who are coming to the faith about why Christ was coming, and he taught many things about the faith, and so there's kind of summarized in the catechal lectures, all right, but I want to highlight this quote. You can go to the next slide. He says, "Very great was the wound of man's nature. From the sole of his foot even unto the head, there was no soundness in it. There was no mollifying ointment, nor oil, nor bandages. Then the prophets, bewailing themselves and being in trouble, said, who shall give salvation to Israel out of Zion? So what St. Cyril is saying here is that the condition of man had become so poor that our ability to harm one another has become so great that the prophets had no idea what to do. Prophets are saying like, okay, we can't see where salvation is going to come from. We've spoken, we've taught, we've led by example, we've done all these things, but humanity is not changing. And the condition of humanity and the nature of humanity has become so disturbed that we don't see salvation coming. And this is why Christ came. It's because of our condition. It's not the question of like, why did he come knowing this? Well, this was the condition of man. What happened in Bethlehem with the infants was the product of the condition of humanity, not a product of the condition of Christ coming. It's because of what was happening that he chose to come. It's very easy to get, and the easy way out of this is it's very easy to get fixated on the condition of humanity in man, right? And this is something that I tend to do. I tend to look, and I generalize this in some of my sermons, right? Where I say, look at the condition of the world. Look at the condition of things, right? And there's truth to it, but it's also an escape from the reality. Because if I really want to internalize the mystery of the incarnation, if I really want the incarnation to matter to me, then I can't look at society and say, oh, look at the condition of man. I have to look inside my heart and say, look at my condition. It's because of my condition that he came. It's because of what is happening inside of me. Sure, I'm not on the spectrum of what Herod did. All right? But I am capable of hurting my brother. I am capable of thinking so poorly of others. I am capable in my mind to pick apart my sister. I am capable to do harm to my own children. I am capable of this. Not at the spectrum of Herod, but in my own right, in my own circle, in my own community, my condition is broken. And it's because of that the Lord came. And it's because of my condition that I am struggling to enjoy the relationship with him. But he saw my condition. He saw what I'm able to do. And he said, I'm coming because of this. Because you are mine, and I need to guide you. I don't ask why you did this. Right? I know why. I know it's because of sin. I know it's because you are still in need of a shepherd. I know it's because you're hurting. But I came because you were hurting. And because nobody else could offer healing. And so when I begin to refocus my attention from all the negative things that it's so easy to get caught up in society and begin to turn my attention inwards and to say, it's because of what's happening inside my heart that the Lord has come and become incarnate, then the mystery and the beauty and the joy of the incarnation comes to life. I want to read one more quote from St. Cyril, where he says, for since we could not look on him or enjoy him because of the condition that has come upon us, for since we could not look on him or enjoy him as he is, he became what we are, that we might attain to the enjoyment of him. He drew close to me and to all of us that I might enjoy the relationship with him. so that he can continue to guide me as a parent guides a child in what is right, and how to live towards God and how to live towards each other. And when he does that, and he invites us into that relationship, he calls us his children, but he still invites us into that relationship, right? It's a relationship that fosters love. It's a relationship that fosters a choice that we make. And it's when we come in a spirit of freedom, in a spirit of love, in a spirit out of a choice that we're making, that we enjoy the mystery of the incarnation. We see not why he came, but we see it's because of the situation that he came. Because of what is happening inside of me, he came. And what I want us to do in our minute of silence is to look inside and to highlight the hardness that we have. And everybody has a different hardness. Some of us have a hardness of like greed. Some of us has a hardness of like lack of forgiveness. Some of us have a hardness of, I want to say like 3 different words all in one time, all right? Of jealousy. Some of us have a hardness of envy. Whatever the hardness is that we hold, this is what we need to focus on. And this is where we need to tell ourselves, it's because of this hardness that he came. He doesn't ask, why do you have the hardness? He said, it's because you have the hardness that I have come. Because Herod is capable of doing this, I came. Because of humanity losing its way, I became. Because you've lost the image and the likeness of me shining through, I came. So that's why I want us to think about, what is the hardness that is shielding our heart from the joy of the relationship with him? And let's focus on that and allow the mystery and the beauty of the incarnation to come and bring joy back into our lives. Glory be to God forever.